Absolute Wonder Woman issue 1, Kelly Thompson writing with Hayden Sherman on the art. So this is our second Absolute book of the bunch. One I was looking forward to based on Kelly Thompson's name being attached. I didn't really know what to expect from Sherman per se. Which I guess on that, first of all, what I'd say about Sherman is that I think the art is typically fantastic. I don't necessarily. It's one of these artists that kind of fall into the. I don't know if I love it when the characters are just sitting talking to each other because the faces aren't necessarily the most performant in terms of expressions and subtleties. But when it comes to layouts and action and big epic moments and like getting scale across and like making things feel like they're huge, that stuff is on point. Like that stuff I was enjoying. Every time Wonder Woman, because the story's kind of split into like the present day and flashbacks to her upbringing. And inherently, all this stuff in present day with all the action, I thought looked fantastic. And it's not that the stuff in the flashbacks looked bad. It just didn't have that same spark to it.
I do like their parts in the flashbacks where we see time pass and it's the same cave that Cersei and Diana are living in. But there's little subtle differences looking around to show that time's passing. And I thought that was handled really well. Just,
there's smart craft going on for sure in terms of layouts and like that's it kind of thing.
But yeah, when they're kind of just sitting around and it's kind of quiet, it feels like we're wasting some space that we could have been doing some really rad things. But the story is what it is.
I mean, I don't even think it's necessarily. It's just my taste in like face art, I guess, for lack of a better term. So yeah, this book starts off with this, giant kind of almost Hellraiser-esque upside down pyramid appearing over the water at Gateway City, I think they said, which they say is in California here. Has that always been canon?
I don't know. This is the first time I've heard it, but it makes me think of, the Golden Gate. They call it the Golden Gateway. So maybe this is supposed to be like a stand-in for San Francisco. I'm going to look right now while you're talking if Gateway City is... Yeah. Because it feels familiar, but I don't know.
I feel like 90% of the fake cities in DC lore are all East Coast or close to the East Coast, so it's nice for one or two to mention West Coast occasionally.
Well, and like, because off the top of my head, the ones that are on the West Coast are like Coast City, Starling City, or Star City, depending on what we're calling it, because it's outside of Seattle. And that's kind of it. I think I'm drawing a blank. Is it Las Palmas? For Blue Beetle, I feel that's on the West Coast, but yeah, there's not too many of those, Metropolis, Gothams, on the West Coast of the United States. And
because even like Central City and Keystone are meant to be, Yeah,
they're definitely Midwest, and you could say they're the Twin Cities, or they're like Kansas City, Kansas, and Kansas City, Missouri, right? They're across the state line from each other. They're part of one big.
But they're still much closer to the East Coast than they are. Anything else.
I mean, Midwest, they're kind of middle of the country. At least that's how I've always taken those cities, Keystone and Central, because the fact that Wally's from Blue Valley, Nebraska, and that's not too far, right? Nebraska's dead center of the country. So, Gateway City's been around for a minute in DC.
I feel like I could name you 10 fictional cities from DC. I don't think Gateway would be one that I'd think of.
I'm a nerd for this stuff, and I wouldn't either, but it's been around since Showcase number 60 in February 66, and it was the traditional home base of the Spectre and Wonder Woman. So, Kelly Thompson reaching deep into the bag here. I like that.
It's definitely not been used in a while, because I don't remember it coming up too often. Because even something like Midway City I'd mentioned before I get to Gateway City.
Yeah. And Hub City, right? The home of the Question, typically that one comes to mind. So Gateway I thought was new, but turns out I was wrong.
So this thing appears over the sky. The news reports are going nuts, but these like winged demon things start flying out of it and attacking people. And that's when Wonder Woman on her Pegasus, which is a skeleton with wings, not
looks like a thestral, skeletal, winged horse.
Yeah, a thestral. I know that word.
You do now.
You're such a nerd, Matt.
Thank you. If Connor was here, he'd be backing me up. Let me just say, it's the only time I've ever needed the tag in for Connor, Yeah,
well, Connor's dead, so you're not going to get that.
Next week, seance.
We get the Ouija board down next week. Try and contact Connor.
The Gingy board.
So she's got what I can only describe as a Final Fantasy sword.
Yes.
To hit these winged beasts, and she's got a big helmet mask on, and she's got like a red-black color scheme, except the W on her chest, which is silver, but everything else is black and red.
Yeah, that helm reminded me of Ares. Like when we do see Ares pop up, you know, very reminiscent of that. Very looking dark. Mm-hmm. She rubs blood on her eyes too when she takes the helmet off. You're like, oh man, Wonder Woman is metal.
Oh yeah, this is definitely more warrior sort of stuff. But obviously, you know, we get a big splash page of her clanking her bracelets together to make a big boom. And then it gets on to the backstory, and we find out that Themyscira does exist in the Absolute Universe, but Diana did not grow up there. She was perhaps born there, but was taken from there as a baby and given to Circe, who was spending time in hell on an island, a much smaller island than Themyscira.
Yes.
And basically, hey, this is part of the punishment. The gods are punishing the Amazons, so they don't get their baby. Here, you have it. We don't care if it lives or dies. It's Apollo delivering it for the record to Circe, and Circe's like, "What? This is a baby. What am I to do with this? It's hell.
I don't want this.
What's going on here?" Also, he puts like a hex or whatever you want to call it on Circe, so she can't say the word Amazon, so that Diana can't like hear it. And part of the story in the flashbacks here is that when she gets to like teenage kind of age, she basically starts to just know the word internally, and it's like, there's a word I think I know, even though I've never heard it. I dare, should I say it? And Circe's like, oh yeah, say it and know it's true. And she says the word Amazon, and it's like a big moment.
Yeah, it's what I like here with Circe and the playing with the magic of it is like there's something innate in Diana, and instead of trying to squash it, she is nurturing it. And even though there's this word that she can't say, you know, there's nothing that Apollo did to Diana that says that she can't, right? So Circe with all that magic, there's something that's very, innately magical in Diana, and she's gonna bring that out, and I like that here because it kind of matches what we know with Hippolyta and how defiant Diana was, right? This is almost the inverse of this.
Yeah, I don't even know if I'd describe it as magical per se. I would just say it's Diana's spirit, if nothing else. Like her, she is who she is no matter what. Like,
right.
All these creatures come that are dangerous, and Circe sort of notes that very quickly Diana would just like grab them and hold them and be kind, and before long, all of these creatures that should be trying to kill her were her friends. You know, there's literally a page on those like 3 2-page layouts where she's growing up in each page. She's, as a toddler, she's literally playing with like a red snake and these little red demon imp things and some lizards and just having a little ball. Yeah,
I do like that. It just shows also that her compassion defines her in kind of the same way over with Absolute Batman. There were still some things that were very much Bruce, even though kind of the things have changed. There are things that were just innate, and here it's almost as if her compassion's there, because the pages before that, when that little fire dragon blows fire into her face, you know, she grabs it, and instead of like throwing it like she does the snake, she like caresses it and is like, no, it's okay. As when she's a toddler. So it just shows this is who she is no matter what.
Yeah. So when it comes back to the present day stuff, she comes up to like a soldier who's here, and she's like, "Are you in charge?" And he just kind of goes, and she's like, "That would be a no. Where's your superior?" And she tries to go talk to them, but as she's doing so, the big monster shows up. A big red demon comes out of the ocean and is ready to fight. So we get this page. It's very reminiscent to me of like one of the shots, or maybe even the poster from the movie I Kill Giants, where she's in the foreground with her big sword and this big like demon's like standing in front of her.
Yeah.
So yeah, you get some more big action stuff. Her sort of like spinning around her sword to sort of block a big attack, and the Pegasus gets involved and starts like flying around and try to hit it in the eyes. However, this big monster thing, this big red demon mantis-y looking bastard, basically has some form of heat vision that he starts firing at Diana. And it's a whole thing. So lots of big action pages here. The little demons get back up at one point. Really, like when I talked about the art excelling, it's stuff like there's a page here where the second time the big monster fires its heat vision at Diana, there's this great sequence where it's like it's showing you the different stages as if he's turning his head trying to hit her and she's running away from it. And it shows this by obviously having like 5 different beams coming from his eyes. But Diana's movements are sort of presented all sequentially, which is not unusual for comics, but they've done this little touch here where each like different movement in the timeline is represented with like a box drawn around
like
her.
Like a border, yeah.
Yeah, but it's not like a panel in a comic book. It's more like a border that's drawn in the 3D space that she's jumping through. And it really gives this sense of motion and fluidity as she's like dodging this beam that's moving. It does a really great job of like emulating that feeling as she comes around.
It feels very tactile, right? Like it's and very spatially aware. Like we can follow it perfectly.
It makes it feel 3-dimensional in a way that like 2D shouldn't feel this 3-dimensional, but it does.
Yep.
And that's quite good. So yeah, great stuff. She gets, blasted with it anyway, though, much to her chagrin, and gets, kicked down the entire beach of the city. And that's when we get the flashback to the Wild Isle, which is the island in hell she grew up with Cersei on, where she first says Amazon for the first time. And again, one of my favorite bits of sequencing in this book is that you get one page of this flashback, and then it mixes the present day and the flashback together, because you get like her basically getting back onto her feet after getting blasted with the heat vision. So she's she's in the sand. She sort of slowly gets up, and these panels play out in the background as the panels in the foreground are the flashback continuing with Cersei kind of saying, "Hey, you're going to be special. Say it again." She's like, "I'm an Amazon. You're going to be important." And Cersei's narration throughout, and it kind of wraps up again at the end here, is to fall in love with a child is to raise it, but to prove your love, that means letting her go. So you really get this sense that not so much that it lines up exactly with like her popping out in present day. Like I don't think this flashback is just an hour ago. I think there's a bigger time gap there, but it does kind of feel like it thematically really links up. And she pulls out her version of a lasso here in the final page. And she does say she's Diana of Themyscira. She knows of that place, even though she's never been. Well, as far as we know, maybe.
As far as we know, because they make a big deal that Zeus had locked up the Amazons.
Yes.
Right, for what they had done. And again, that's a very dark-sided, because this is the absolute world where Darkseid's the prime kind of motivator here, and so that seems very much like a thing that we're going to remove this, and she won't be a problem. Only it's finding, Dan's finding a way. Yeah.
Worth mentioning, though, that in the time between leaving Cersei and showing up on Earth, it's entirely possible that there is a trip to Themyscira in that time. I would guess there isn't. I think she's not been there, but I'm just saying that the possibility does exist.
Yeah, it's there, and we don't know how much about the gods she knows, right? Because it's not like she's calling out to the gods or anything. Everything is very much, she's doing magic like Cersei. So it's very much, instead of Diana calling upon, her patrons from Olympus, she's relying on this magic that Cersei taught her.
Yeah, I mean, Cersei's narration at the end just mentions giving her like the weapons and the armor, the greatest things imaginable. But that does make me think that more of the flashbacks we might get going forward will be how she gets, this stuff. Like, what is this lasso? Where did it come from?
Right.
Her bracelets here in this case, where did those come from? So I suspect we'll get more of that as the issues lead on. I mean, I think this issue, it really boils down to two things. You've got all the present day stuff with the big fancy action, the monster attack, and Diana being a badass, and you've got the flashbacks explaining how different her upbringing is here in this universe, which is she's in hell on a small island with Cersei, who kind of becomes the mother figure. That's interesting. That's a big of enough difference to get us going. So yeah, I was really into this by and large.
Yeah. Me too. And again, like with the art here, like those monsters look cool, right? They're nothing like that we're used to. Like they look like little like bat dragons, right? But then when you get to the big one, and its head kind of peels apart, almost like the Demogorgon in Stranger Things. But there's also eyes on it, so it's unlike anything I've seen, which is cool. I like when art can do new things here. And it makes it feel like a threat as well, like this strange creature and the floating pyramid behind it, that's inverted. So yeah, the art and the words working pretty well together.
Yeah, like I say, like that 2-page layout of her getting up after being knocked down as the flashbacks playing out in panels over top. It really does creates that effect of like you're watching a movie and you're intercutting like an emotional speech from a past scene with the character kind of standing to rise to the occasion in the present day part, and I think it really nails that feeling. Really, really good stuff. So yeah, no, I think this is another solid first issue for these Absolute books. They've not faltered yet. Inevitably, one will not be great, and like that'll happen when it happens. But admittedly, I wasn't expecting the Kelly Thompson one to be the one that failed, but
no.
here we are. It's really good stuff. Art is typically extremely good, right? I don't necessarily love every single, face when they're just sitting around talking, but the action layouts and the way it creates momentum and scale is really quite wonderful. So, yeah. So, all right, what are you giving Absolute Wonder Woman?
I mean, it's 8.5.
Yeah, honestly, that sounds about right. Yeah. I kind of want to go to the 9, but I think maybe it is just shy of being classed as amazing. So I will agree with the 8.5, but very, very, very good.